When Hannah and Jonathan sat down to sign their divorce papers, it seemed like their love had died, crushed by anger, pride, and wounds that time could not heal. But, in a way that no one could have imagined, life decided to give them a second chance. Amidst bitter words and long silences, something unexpected began to blossom. A forgotten memory, an involuntary touch, a look full of everything that still existed and that they tried to deny. Amidst their tears, they discovered that true love had never gone away. Today, this story shows us that sometimes it is necessary to lose everything to truly understand what it means to love. Because there are moments in life, moments so heavy, so final, that you can almost hear a door slamming shut behind you. That's what Hannah felt the day she threw the pen onto the lawyer's desk. Her hand was trembling. Her heart, worse. Jonathan just stared at her. No words. No anger left. Only a hollow kind of silence, the kind that hurts more than any scream. They had been married for 7 years, 7 winters in Idaho, some bitter, some sweet. 7 summers, filled with laughter and fights that always seemed to end, in each other's arms, until they didn't anymore. Can love really run out? Can 2 people who once promised forever really become strangers in the same room? Hannah and Jonathan didn't fall out of love all at once. No, it happened in small ways. A forgotten text, a slammed door, 100 moments where I'm sorry came too late. At first, they fought for the marriage. Counseling sessions that ended in tears, long drives in silence, sleep back to back, pretending the other wasn't crying. But pride has a way of building walls higher than any love can climb. And so, with the weight of 1,000 unsaid words between them, they sat in that cold, gray office and signed the end of their story. Or so they thought. Jonathan left first, shoving the door open like he could escape the pain if he just walked fast enough. Hannah stayed behind, sitting, breathing, breaking apart, piece by piece. Outside, Idaho's winter showed no mercy. The streets were covered in heavy snow, the air sharp with frost. It mirrored what Hannah felt inside. Cold. Numb. Done. Or was she? That night she sat on the floor of their empty living room. The house smelled of them. Coffee, laundry soap. That stupid vanilla candle Jonathan hated but always let her light anyway. Memories flooded her. First kisses, late-night confessions, Sunday mornings tangled in blankets and laughter. Where had they gone wrong? When had love become a battleground instead of a home? She wanted to blame him. She wanted to scream. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny voice whispered, "You didn't fight for him. You fought against him." The realization hit harder than any argument ever had. She had been right, yes, about some things, but she had also been cruel, sharp, unforgiving. Love isn't about winning, it's about surrender, and both of them had forgotten how to do that. Meanwhile, Jonathan drove aimlessly through the snowy roads. Miles passed, hours slipped by. But no matter how far he drove, he couldn't outrun the ache in his chest. He thought about Hannah, the way she used to laugh without holding back, the way she whispered, "I love you," when she thought he was already asleep. He missed her. God, he missed her. And somewhere between the endless white fields and the broken lines of the highway, he realized he didn't want the divorce. He didn't want the end. But was it too late? Was Hannah already too far gone to ever come back? As midnight crept closer, Jonathan turned the truck around. Home wasn't just a place. It was her. He needed to find her. He needed to say what he should have said 1,000 times before, and she was still waiting for him too. Jonathan stood at their front door, the keys shaking in his frozen hand. Inside, the lights were off. but he knew she was there. He could feel her, like a heartbeat pulling him home. He opened the door slowly. The creak of the hinges echoed like a memory. Hannah sat on the living room floor, her back against the couch, knees pulled to her chest. She didn't look up when he entered. She just hugged a pillow tighter. Jonathan stepped inside. Careful, like approaching a wounded animal. He didn't say anything. What could he say that hadn't already been shouted, or worse, left unsaid? Instead, he crossed the room in 3 long steps. He sat down beside her, not touching. Just there. Minutes passed. Or maybe lifetimes. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Hannah broke the silence, her voice raw and small. "I don't hate you, Jonathan." He turned his head toward her, his throat tightening. She still wouldn't look at him. "I don't hate you either, Hannah," he said. His voice cracked on her name. They sat there, 2 broken people who had once been whole together. 2, hearts still beating but out of sync. Outside, the snow kept falling. Soft, relentless. Inside, something even more fragile was beginning. Forgiveness. It didn't come with grand gestures. It didn't come with flowers or long speeches. It came with sitting side by side in the dark, saying nothing and meaning everything. The days that followed weren't easy. In fact, some were worse than before. Hannah moved in with her sister across town. Jonathan stayed in the house, wandering through rooms that smelled like regret. They both tried to fill the emptiness. Work, friends, long nights staring at their phones but not calling. But something had shifted that night on the floor. A tiny crack in the armor, a whisper of maybe where before there had only been never. They started texting, short, awkward messages at first. "Did you get home safe?" "Yeah." "You?" "Yeah." Then longer ones. Then phone calls. Then coffee dates that weren't really dates. Just 2 people remembering how to be gentle with each other again. Was it enough? Would it ever be enough? Hannah wasn't sure. Jonathan wasn't either. But they were trying. And sometimes trying is the bravest thing you can do. But love, real love, is never a straight road. One cold Sunday morning, it all came crashing down again. Jonathan showed up at Hannah's sister's house unannounced. He was holding a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked himself. Tiny, delicate things, half frozen by the Idaho winter. Hannah answered the door in sweatpants, no makeup, her hair messy. She looked at the flowers, then at him. "What are you doing here, Jonathan?" she asked, exhaustion plain in her voice. He shifted from foot to foot. "Just wanted to see you," he said, voice low. She leaned against the doorframe. Her heart hurt just looking at him. This man she loved. This man she hated sometimes. This man she didn't know how to let go of. Tears filled her eyes. Not from anger, not from sadness, from fear. Fear that no matter how much they tried, they were too broken to fix. "We can't just pretend like nothing happened," she said, her voice cracked. "We hurt each other, Jonathan. Bad." He nodded. "I know. Love isn't enough sometimes," she whispered. Jonathan stepped closer, holding out the flowers like they could somehow explain all the words he couldn't find. "I know love isn't enough," he said. "But maybe choosing each other every day is." A long silence. Hannah's tears spilled over. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. She hated how scared she was to try again. But beneath all of it, the fear, the anger, the hurt, there was still love. Raw, bleeding, but alive. She took the flowers from his hand with shaking fingers. and without saying a word, she stepped back, opening the door wider, inviting him in. Maybe they couldn't erase the past. Maybe they couldn't fix everything overnight. But they could start here, with a step, with a choice, with hope. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, painfully, something between Hannah and Jonathan started to heal. But healing is not a straight line. It twists, it stumbles, it tests how much you're willing to fight for what matters. One night, bitter cold outside, a fire crackling inside, Hannah found herself staring at Jonathan across the kitchen table. The air was thick between them, heavy with things still unsaid. Jonathan was nervously tapping his coffee mug, staring at the chipped rim like it held answers. Finally, he spoke. "Hannah, do you think you could ever trust me again?" His voice was barely above a whisper, a man stripped of pride, laid bare in front of the only woman he ever really loved. Hannah didn't answer right away. She looked at her hands, pale and small against the wood of the table. Did she trust him? Could she? Memories flooded her. The nights he stayed out too late. The arguments that left them sleeping in different beds. The feeling of being invisible, forgotten, unloved. But alongside those memories were others too. The night he carried her into the ER when she had a miscarriage. The way he kissed her forehead every morning, even when they were mad. The time he worked double shifts just to surprise her with a weekend trip to Coeur d'Alene, just because she once said she wanted to see the lake. Love isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. She swallowed hard, met his eyes. "I don't know if I'll ever trust you the way I used to," she said honestly. Her voice shook. "But I want to try." Jonathan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His eyes glistened in the firelight. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life earning it back," he said. No grand promises, no fancy words, just truth. And for the first time, in a long time, Hannah believed him. They decided to take it slow. Dates, like teenagers learning each other all over again. Picnics on the tailgate of Jonathan's old truck. Midnight drives just to chase the stars. Long talks sitting on the front porch, watching storms roll over the fields. They laughed again. They fought sometimes too, but softer now. Not to win, but to understand. There were hard days. Days when old wounds bled through the stitches they were trying so carefully to weave. But they didn't run anymore. They stayed. Even when it was hard. Especially then. Because love, real love, is not found in the easy moments. It's built in the broken ones. Spring came to Idaho with a quiet kind of beauty. The snow melted into rivers that sang through the fields. The first wildflowers pushed bravely through the thawed earth. Life returned, not all at once, but steadily, stubbornly, just like them. One Sunday morning, while Hannah was folding laundry in the bedroom, her cell phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text message from Jonathan. And the message said, "Hannah, I know I hurt you. I know sorry is a small word for such a big wound. But every day I wake up, and I'm grateful you're still here. Every day I love you more. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And because you still believe in us, even when it's hard. I want to grow old with you. I want to hold your hand when it's wrinkled and shaking. I want to dance with you barefoot in the kitchen when we're 80. Will you marry me again? Properly. With new vows. With all the scars, all the lessons, all the love. Yours always, Jonathan." Tears blurred her vision. She sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching the cell phone to her chest. Was this real? Was it really possible to have a second chance with the same person? She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her cell phone and called him. When he picked up, she didn't say hello. She just whispered, "Yes." They planned a small ceremony, just family, close friends. No grand ballroom, no tuxedos. Just a grassy hill overlooking the river where they had their first date. Hannah wore a simple dress, white, flowing, with tiny embroidered flowers. Jonathan wore his favorite jeans and a clean shirt that Hannah had ironed that morning with, shaking hands. When they stood facing each other, hands joined, the pastor asked them to share their vows. Jonathan spoke first. No paper, no rehearsed speech. Just him, raw and trembling. "I loved you when I didn't know how to show it," he said. "I hurt you when I didn't know how to hold my own heart. But today, I stand here, not as the man you married before, but as the man who fought for you, fought for us, and will keep fighting every day. I choose you, again, always." Hannah couldn't stop crying. She smiled through the tears. When it was her turn, she placed her hand on his chest, felt his heart beating, steady, strong. "I was scared to love you again," she said. "Scared to forgive, scared to hope. But you showed me that love is not about never falling. It's about getting up every time. Today I choose you too, with all my broken pieces, with all my new strength. I am yours." And under the endless Idaho sky, with tears streaming down their faces, Hannah and Jonathan kissed. This time, not as two broken souls trying to survive, but as two whole hearts choosing each other, scars, fears, hopes, every beautiful, imperfect piece. The day of their vow renewal arrived like a quiet sunrise, soft, steady, full of promise. There was no orchestra, no towering wedding cake, no endless list of guests, just the people who mattered, just the love that endured. Jonathan stood at the top of the hill, nervously tugging at the sleeves of his shirt. His brother clapped him on the back, laughing. "You already married her once, man. You're a pro." Jonathan smiled, but his heart thudded wildly. This felt different, bigger, deeper. This wasn't a beginning. It was a choice, a decision made after storms, after tears, after nearly losing it all. He turned when he heard the soft crunch of gravel. There she was, Hannah, walking slowly up the path, sunlight dancing through the loose curls of her hair. Her dress flowed behind her like a dream. Her eyes, the same eyes that once looked at him with anger and hurt, now shone with something stronger. Hope, forgiveness, love. Jonathan swallowed hard. Tears blurred his vision. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. As Hannah reached him, she slipped her hand into his. Her fingers were cool, trembling slightly. He squeezed them gently. "I'm here," he whispered. A promise in two simple words. The officiant smiled warmly at them. No grand speeches. No heavy words. Just a simple invitation. Jonathan and Hannah have walked through fire. They have fallen, and they have risen. Today, they choose each other, again. Not because life is easy, but because love is worth it. A soft wind swept across the hilltop, carrying the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. Jonathan took a breath and began. "Hannah," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I vow to be the man who stays. When the storms come, when the nights are long, when fear creeps in, I will hold your hand, steady and strong. I will choose you, when it's easy, and especially when it's not. I vow to laugh with you in the sunshine and sit with you in the darkness." He paused, the lump in his throat too big to ignore. "And I vow," he whispered, voice breaking, "to spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget how loved you are." A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. She smiled, soft, radiant. Then she spoke. "Jonathan," she said, her voice shaking but sure, "you are my home. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And you stayed, even when I gave you every reason not to." She stepped closer, pressing her forehead against his. "I vow to fight for us, not against you. I vow to believe in us, even when doubt tries to creep in. I vow to hold your dreams as carefully as my own. And I vow to dance barefoot in our kitchen with you when we're 80. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Jonathan chuckled too, his hands tightening around hers. The officiant nodded. "And so, with the blessings of everyone who loves you, and with the unbreakable bond you have rebuilt, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Again. Cheers erupted. Jonathan swept Hannah into his arms and kissed her, a kiss that tasted of salt and sun and second chances. As they turned to face their loved ones, arms raised in celebration, Hannah caught a glimpse of something beautiful. Not a perfect life ahead, but a life they would build, brick by brick, heart by heart, with patience, with laughter, with forgiveness. They had battled the worst storms. They had walked through the darkest nights, and they had come out stronger, hand in hand, heart to heart, ready for all the messy, wonderful, unpredictable tomorrows still to come. Together, always. 5 years later, the world had changed, and so had they. Life wasn't always easy. No one's is. There were bills they struggled to pay, sick days, missed anniversaries because of work, arguments about small things that felt big in the moment, dirty dishes, forgotten birthdays, words spoken too fast. But there was something different now, something unshakable. They had learned how to come back to each other, every time, without pride, without fear. Their little house on the edge of town grew with them. A new garden bloomed in the backyard, planted by hands that had once thrown things in anger, but now only reached out to nurture. The walls were filled with laughter, not because pain never touched them again, but because love always won louder. Some nights, when the world outside felt too big, too cruel, too uncertain, Jonathan would find Hannah sitting on their front porch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, a cup of tea steaming in her hands. He would sit beside her. No need for words. Just the weight of his presence, steady and sure. Sometimes he would reach for her hand, weathered now by time and all they had built together, and she would smile, leaning her head on his shoulder. They had grown older, and somehow, even more in love. The kind of love that doesn't shout, doesn't demand, doesn't break when the winds blow harder than expected. The kind of love that bends and bends, but never breaks. One evening, after a long day spent fixing a broken fence and laughing over burned cookies, Jonathan turned to Hannah as the sunset poured gold over the fields. "You know," he said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "if I had to do it, all over again, all the mistakes, all the heartbreak, I'd still choose you, every time." Hannah's eyes shimmered with tears. She reached up and cupped his cheek in her palm, feeling the scratch of his beard, the warmth of his skin. "And I'd choose you," she whispered back, "even in the moments when I didn't know how." They kissed, soft and slow, not with the urgency of young lovers, but with the deep, certain knowing that comes from walking through fire and surviving hand in hand. And as the stars blinked to life above them, as the cool night wrapped around their little world, they knew one unshakable truth. Real love isn't about never falling. It's about always finding your way back to each other, no matter how far you wander. And if this story moved you or even made you think, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone. And this story is a work of fiction. All characters, names, and situations are entirely made up and are not based on real individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.